What is going on, beautiful world? Welcome to another Studio Saturdays, and today we're going to be discussing how to recreate realistic shadows in Photoshop. It's pretty straightforward and it's very simple, so let's just dive right into it. Here's our final image. So we added in a gradient as well as a realistic shadow for the base. So I'm going to show you how to create this from this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you basically want to duplicate this layer. You can name this original, because that layer is not going to be touched, and we're going to name the bottom layer shadow. This will be your shadow layer, and the first thing you have to do, Control or Command T, and then on the top center point, click Command or Control, hold and click on that point, and drag down to where you think the shadow would be from the light source. So obviously, I'm thinking, well, I know how my lights were set up for this shot, so I'm gonna pull down, I'm gonna set it right about here. Now if I wanted to, I could even pull up here slightly just to get them to match with the bottoms of the cushions, but I don't think that's necessary. I really think this is gonna be realistic because I did have a light coming down, so there would be darkness underneath where the cups were, and then it would fan out to a brighter white the further back we moved. So that's it for the shadow. That's all you have to do right now. Then you're gonna go here and lock the transparency. You're just gonna lock the transparency. You're gonna come over here to your gradient tool. Make sure you're selected on the black and white gradient here. Select that. And then just from the corner here, you can start a little bit outside of it and drag and go a little bit past it. And this is going to create that gradient for you. So you can even try it different ways to where you're going to be able to get something like this, where it looks realistic, it looks good. So the next thing you're going to do is unlock this layer. So it was locked, now we're unlocking it. We're changing the blend mode to multiply as well. Okay, so now what we're doing here is it's set to multiply. And next we're just going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And what we're going to do is we're going to blur the base right down here. You can see how it's starting to fuzz out like this. We're going to blur it. So here's the original. It's very rough and rugged. We're going to blur it out just so it starts to get a nice round shape. So we're going to go roughly at 4 pixels. If 4 pixels looks good in my opinion, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go 4 pixels. Next thing you're going to do, grab your rectangular marquee tool, set the feather to 100 pixels, and then draw basically at the halfway point where it's supposed to start fading into the background. I'm going to draw right there with my rectangular marquee tool. Then we're going to go back to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're going to go up a little bit more. As you can see with the filter, it starts to actually affect all the way over here, which is what you want. You want it to pace into so it doesn't break too hard away from it. And we're gonna go right up to, we're gonna go up to 8. We're just gonna put this straight to 8 pixels. All right, Control or Command D to deselect layer. Next we're gonna do is create a new layer, drag it below shadow. This is gonna be our gradient. So now we're gonna create that gradient color. And what we're going to do here is you're going to go back to your gradient tool, select a complementary color from it. So we have a deep wine red here, and then we also have a light red here. We're going to select that. Make sure you change the gradient away from this one to a centered. And then what you can do, drag out your rulers, let them snap to center, like so. Then click right in the center point where they are, and drag right to the outside line. And as you can see, there's our dark spot, and the light goes to the outside. So what I want to do is I want to invert these colors. We're going to take this one and we're going to set this one to the light red. Then we're going to go here. We're going to set this one to the dark red. Just like that. And you could go back outside like that. If you want it even more color, you could pull even further. That kind of I think I'm gonna go right there with it. And there you have it. That's all you have to do to create a realistic shadow and a simple gradient background for it. So from the original, we created our shadow, then we added in our gradient, as well as some blurring to make it realistic. Another thing you can do is also just drop this opacity down to around 70%, and then just add in the gradient, and you see how much smoother it falls across. Instead of being really, really harsh and kind of looking really sharp against it, you smooth it out a bit. It starts to look even more realistic, like it has that beautiful bright light behind it, but then it also has a nice gentle shadow coasting into the background. So now we have it. So now we have our done layer and our final. And as you can see, they look very, very similar. I just adjusted, it looks like in this one, I adjusted the shadow a bit more. And afterwards, you can still even adjust the shadow more. Just by playing with it, pulling it down, and pushing it where you want it. You can still play with it as long as you hold command and drag from one point. Now you can see, obviously I had a little bit more blurring down in my final, and that's totally fine. It's going to change. It's basically per scene or how you prefer. That's totally alright, and it works well. So this is how you recreate a realistic shadow and gradient on a simple background from one object. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this studio side on how to create a realistic shadow and then add a simple gradient background to it to make a product pop. Realistic shadows can be used and created from any various amount of objects, or even added in from complex objects. If you guys want to see how to add in shadows on complex objects, comment down below. Let me know if you guys want to see that. Other than that, see you guys next Saturday. Drop that like if this video was helpful and you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are brand new and you're looking for more helpful tips, tricks, and Photoshop tutorials. You'll see them all right here every Saturday. Other than that, I'll catch you guys next Saturday. Peace.